Well, the Institute of Directors has long been arguing that employment law is a significant area of concern to most businesses. We've seen international competitiveness in terms of labour market flexibility in the UK moving downwards. I think we're about 35th internationally now, whereas a few years back we were as high as 17th. So the marketplace is worsening. And we've been telling government this. Tribunal reform was an important part of what was necessary to improve our labour market competitiveness, and we have been saying to government for some months now that it was necessary to introduce some fees or some upfront costs for claimants to ensure that there was some skin in the game. And the government's recent announcement is very much that individuals, when bringing a claim to an employment tribunal, will now have to pay a relatively modest sum of money in order to bring that claim. And the reason we've said this is necessary is because many businesses tell us that they're paying tens, if not hundreds of thousands of pounds defending cases that are brought against them that they subsequently win, but the claimant had no skin in the game and effectively was making vexatious claims. Well, at the moment, the problem with the system is that 1 in 10 cases brought by claimants are only won. So only 1 in 10 cases typically being won. So we should see a reduction in the amount of cases that don't have strong case, strong backing, strong evidence brought to tribunals in the first place. So that's got to be an improvement. That's going to put fewer people through hardship, whether it be the employee or the employer, of a process that's onerous and ultimately going to be quite destructive in many cases. So we should see fewer of those. That's the first positive development. I suppose the other positive development is that given that these fees exist and people will have to think harder about whether or not to pay to go to a tribunal, we should see the quality of those cases and the amount of money that businesses have to spend on defending cases go down. I mean, the average figure is about £8,500 to defend a tribunal case, but it can be massively more, substantially less. So we should see that reduce, and that will be a positive development. Ultimately, I think what we should see is really a much more relaxed and sensible way to try and to sort out many of these issues. So the government have introduced some more pre-claim conciliation efforts, so businesses can go and have interaction with their employees who have concerns or a claim that they may wish to make, and hopefully resolve these things without the need for legal intervention. Well, employees have got nothing to fear from this change, and in fact I'd say that it was massively beneficial to them in the long run. The first point to make is that in terms of tribunal fees, they're relatively modest. They're about £150 to £250 up front. There are additional costs for going through to a tribunal hearing itself, but the initial costs are not large. And the reality is that for most people who are going to find it difficult to pay that type of fee, they're going to be passed from doing so, if not exclusively, partially, by the remission system that exists in this country. So they will not have to pay the full fee if they cannot. So there is no access to justice argument here. The other point that I'd make is that this is great news for employees too, because we know from IOD members that they say that the burden of employment law has stopped at least half of members from taking on additional staff. So actually, by improving the employment law environment, of which tribunals is one part, we will see more employers more willing to take on more staff. So ultimately, the key thing here is getting people into work rather than being worried about the terms on which they leave it.